All righty, check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. What you gonna do? Does my mic sound nice? Check 1. Does my mic sound nice? Check 2. And the mic does sound nice. So we in there. Everything is good. What's going on? What's going on? Thank y'all for coming in. What's up, Facebook? What's up, YouTube? What's up, Twitter, now known as X? What's up, Twitch? What's up, Spotify? I want to say what's up to the live viewers and to the replay viewers. What's good? Yes, indeed. All right, man. We got another banger that we're going to kick out to y'all. Appreciate y'all watching. And this one, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right. Most definitely. So, just see my face, right? So, here we go again. You know, it's kind of interesting that when within the last couple of years or so, you know, reparations was starting to get spoken of, although this has been spoken of for years back. I remember when even Johnny Cochran, when he was done with the OJ case, he was saying now he's going to get ready to hit up the reparations situation, right? And not too long after he mentioned he was going to start bringing lawsuits for the reparations, all of a sudden, he was neutralized. All of a sudden, he was neutralized. When Johnny Cochran started mentioning he was getting ready to get people to cut that check, all of a sudden, Johnny Cochran was neutralized after he mentioned that. Not too long after he's talking about reparations, starts making some lawsuits on reparations, Johnny Cochran disappeared. He ended up being neutralized. And so, fast forward into now, within the last 2-3 years, you know, reparations was brought up and it was talked about real heavy on social media. And then you had a lot of detractors saying, yeah, they're not talking about nothing. We just talking about reparations on this app. But reparations talk has been spread all over the place. So much so that you fast forward into this year, and I guess within a week or two, maybe 3 at most, your boy Robert Kennedy Jr. was even asked about reparations. And I want to show y'all a pattern when people get asked that question. All right. I want to show you guys a pattern that goes down because it seems like a certain group of people, when you start asking that question, all of a sudden everybody starts mumbling and fumbling and talking all around your question. And I'm going to show you, let me see, 1 2, including with Kennedy here, 3 videos. I'm going to be probably fast forwarding through a couple of them. And this is like a learning moment for you guys to start noticing when it comes to talking about things for Black people and what we are owed. Everybody all of a sudden has a different take. They see things in another light. But when everybody else, when it comes to every other ethnic group, Afghans, Ukrainians, the Hispanics coming across the border and coming through and filling up these different cities, the Asians, the so-called Native Americans, or the red Native Americans, Japanese, nobody seems to have an issue with that, with giving them whatever it is they need. But when it comes to us, all of a sudden, everybody don't seem to fall in line like they do with all the other ethnicities, right? So we're gonna get it in this evening and just to show y'all how to get down so you could be better informed and more knowledgeable. All right. So with that being said, this is Thoughts of the Week podcast. Let's get it.
So for a family member has offered his condolences. Will the family find it in their heart to accept it? Would you accept it?
Hell no. The time for remorse would have been when my husband was yelling to breathe. That would have been the time for him to show some type of remorse or some type of care for another human being's life when he was screaming 11 times that he can't breathe. So there's nothing that him or his prayers or anything else would make me feel any different. No, I don't accept his apology. No, I could care less about his condolences. No, I could care less. He's still working. He's still getting a paycheck.
You're rocking with the best Thoughts of the Week podcast. Yes, indeed. You're rocking with the best Thoughts of the Week podcast. We're going to get it in, baby. So, yeah. Robert Kennedy Jr. All right. So first up, what we're going to do is play the first video. We're going to play Kennedy's last. We're going to get it in on him. But I'm going to first show you one video here. And you all might be very familiar with this video. All right. The Fair Use Act is in full effect. And we're going to do commentary. We're going to learn. We're going to get educated. So the fair use is in full effect. All right. So let's get it in with this first one that you will be familiar with. But I want you to pay attention to what is being said, to the behaviors, so on and so forth. All right. So here's the first one.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination and segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. The interviewer was looking at her. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies,
Pay attention to the
when you
body
take
language.
into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will
Pay
directly
attention to the
benefit
words.
black children, black families, black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right?
I'm not gonna do something. I'm not saying I'm not gonna do something that ain't gonna benefit black people. No. Don't be voting for her. All right. All right. So, video number 2. Let's pull this up real quick. Let's see here. All righty. All right. Let's get it in with this one. So, y'all remember when I did the podcast broadcast on Stacey Abrams, and she was questioned roughly about the same thing. The same things were brought up, right? So let's just take a listen to how she responds. All right. I'm gonna be fast forwarding here and there. Okay. So we can get to the point on these other videos. I'm gonna show you one more after this. Then we're gonna get into Kennedy. All right. So let's take a listen. So on and so forth. But why is it? Why they can't say they're gonna do something just for black people? All right, and I'm gonna play her response, and we're gonna really get down and break some stuff down here in a minute. All right, so here is, and of course, DC Youngfly said we still ain't getting any reparations yet. All right, you see how he slipped that one in there, and so here is your girl's response.
Because African Americans represent 12% of the population. And so if you are a traditional politician doing the math, you think if I name this group, I am going to lose other people and I can't get, if every single black person voted for me, this may not get me what I want. So let me make it vague enough that other people don't get offended by helping.
Oh, that's what you just gave me.
Wow. Now, she said it's so much things to unpack on this one. All right. So other people don't get offended.
And so if
here is, and of course, DC Youngfly said, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that back again one more time. But I just want y'all, I'm doing this so you can notice the pattern, notice the dodging, notice the excuses when it comes to us getting something. You seen Scamala. So that's not saying I'm doing anything for just black people. No. And then before then, she was doing a lot of history babble. You know, she was talking about the history of how it went down and let you know she knows about it, but it was never a direct answer to what you're going to do when it comes to reparations. Right? So that was Kamala Harris. Now we have Stacey Abrams. And again, listen to the excuses. All right. We still ain't getting any reparations yet. All right. You see how he slipped that one in there. And so here is your girl's response.
Because African Americans represent 12% of the population. And so if you are a traditional politician doing the math, you think if I name this group, I am going to lose other people and I can't get, if every single black person voted for me, this may not get me what I want. So let me make it vague enough that other people don't get offended by helping.
Oh, you just gave me.
Now, she said it's so much things to unpack on this one. All right. So other people don't get offended. So don't say nothing. Don't say you can't. He said, why can't they say they're going to do something just for black people, or why don't they do something just for black people? Well, her first response was because we're 12% of the population, right? Let me play this back again. We're going to break this down today. You're going to learn today.
Of this country, so many things have been done to us, but very little has been done specifically for us.
A lot has been done to us, but very little or nothing has been done for us.
Why do you think that is?
Because African Americans represent 12% of the population. And
all right, let's break that down. African Americans, she said the reason why they can't say they want to do something for us is because African Americans, we're going to break it all down today. You're going to learn today, are 12% of the population. That's the reasoning for that, right? According to her. Okay. That's the reasoning for this. Okay. Well, let's break this down a little bit, shall we? Let's break this down. All right. She said that. Okay, I'm gonna just stop it right there. All right. And I'm going to pull up another video. All right. I'm going to pull up another video here. Y'all know this. Y'all heard this one. All right. All right. All right. So we're going to pull this one up and listen to this one. All right. Raphael Warnock. All right. Let's play this one.
It seems that we're always dealing with the symptoms of the problems instead of the bigger issues. And it seems that's one of the issues that could kind of fix all the issues is talking about reparations. And we don't talk about reparations enough in this country. And the last that I checked, the House had gotten the HB 40 past committee. And as far as I can tell, that's where it stopped. And I know you're in the Senate, so I'm not sure what you can do about that. But I did just wonder what you could do to further that cause in America right now.
So there is a bill to study the issue of reparations. Here's what I'm for: equity and opportunity.
I'm gonna play this back, but you already see him. They're already doing the dance, right? Every time somebody brings up reparations, what you're gonna do for black people, they start doing that dance. Oh, we can't make people mad. We got to be real vague. And then this bozo is talking about, I'm for equity. I'm for equity. Play that back. I'm telling you, man, it's a pattern. And I think they're all in on it. They all know not to. They're doing the benign and neglect policy, which is do not offer or say you're going to do anything for black people. And they all are following that script. All right. I just want to see the pattern of bouncing around the questions, making excuses, going directly around things. All right. So let me play that back. They all have been given the same script. All right.
What you can do about that, but I did just wonder what you could do to further that cause in America right now.
So there is a bill to study the issue of reparations. Here's what I'm for: equity and opportunity.
Equity,
And I wake
opportunity.
up every day fighting for that. And I do it in such a way that I think benefits all of us. But when you look at the issue of healthcare, for example, if we can get Medicaid expanded, it would help all of us if we could get Medicaid expanded, if we could get a fix. But it would have a disproportionate impact on communities of color because the disparities are so great. When we invest in jobs, when we Medicaid expanded.
All right. Peep the words and peep the body language. All right. Just pay attention to all of that. Let's play it back again.
It would help all of us if we could get Medicaid expanded, if we could get a fix.
Dealing with the symptoms of the problems instead of the bigger issue.
Back. All right. Let's go.
My question is, it seems that we're always dealing with the symptoms of the problems instead of the bigger issues. And it seems that's one of the issues that could kind of fix all the issues is talking about reparations. And we don't talk about reparations enough in this country. And the last that I checked, the House had gotten the HB 40 past committee. And as far as I can tell, that's where it stopped. And I know you're in the Senate, so I'm not sure what you can do about that. But I did just wonder what you could do to further that cause in America right now.
So there is a bill to study the issue of reparations. Here's what I'm for: equity and opportunity. And I wake up every day fighting for that. And I do it in such a way that I think benefits all of us. But when you look at the issue of healthcare, for example, if we can get Medicaid expanded.
He didn't ask him about Medicaid or healthcare. He asked him about reparations.
Get a fix. But it would have a disproportionate impact on communities of color because the disparities are so great. When we invest in jobs, when we invest in infrastructure, when we invest in a whole range of these things, when we deal with the expanded child tax credit, which helps 97% of families with children. But when you look at the racial wealth gap, it will be a great help to communities of color and other marginalized people.
All right, so all right, so you seen him bouncing around everywhere else, right? Excuses and excuses. Didn't answer the question. Bounced and talked about health care and Medicare and communities of color. We all know what that code word is, right? So you see the pattern. All right. So now what we're going to do, that's all you need to see is that one. Let me see if there's one more or not. Yeah. It might be it. We're going to go into the main one here in a minute. All right. Let me just look real quick. So you see the pattern. You see, and even Biden himself mentioned there wouldn't be any reparations without the Native Americans. And then you had a Native American herself get on Twitter and say that they already get reparations. And you notice Biden didn't talk no more about that after that came out. Right? So the Indians, Native Americans said they already get reparations. And then I told you a while back that there are some teens that get like, they're Native Americans, that get about 100-something thousand. Either, I don't think it's every month, I think it's once a year. And these are Native American teenagers. They get about 100,000 a year. So they're getting reparations every year. And it came from them. They're the ones who told it. All right, let me see if I can find, if there's one more. Not that I can find one. Let me see if there's one more. If not, we're going to go right into the main one. I just wanted you to get that. So you see the games that's being played, right? You see the games that's being played. So now what we're going to do is we're going to play the main one. Let me get this pulled up real quick here.
What's the position?
All right, there we go. All righty, let me see where we at here. That's interesting. Okay, so what we're going to do is play the main one. This is a more recent interview. I think it's within maybe, I say 3 weeks or less. This is Robert Kennedy Jr., and I want you to pay attention to how he responds and what he says when it comes to the question of reparations. I want y'all to see all these patterns. I played Kamala Harris, Stacey Abrams, Raphael Warnock, and now we got Robert Kennedy Jr. All right, so let's check this out.
What's the position on reparations?
Well,
I got you.
yeah. Listen, can I tell you about a little bit about my background?
Now, right off the bat, they didn't ask him about his background. He was asked about his stance or his thought on reparations. He already starting the deflection already. You see that, right? Stumbling a little bit. He had to sit and think for a second. Let me talk about my background. Nobody asked him about that, but I want you to see the pattern. All right. And just go back so you can learn. This is how they get down. And this is the same guy that said the one thing you can depend on him about is he's being truthful. All right, y'all listen to it.
What's the position on reparations?
Well,
I got you.
yeah. Listen, can I tell you about a little bit about my background? So, my father in 1966 walked through Bed-Stuy, and he walked down Fulton Street, Atlantic Avenue. And Bed-Stuy at that time was, by most of the indicia of by which you measure poverty, it was one of the most extreme levels of poverty in America, comparable to, Watts or Compton. But there was something unique about Bed-Stuy, which was that there was a huge, very, very high level of home ownership, which is unlike Harlem, there was a lot of absentee owners in Harlem.
Right.
Bed-Stuy, a lot of those families had been there since right after the Civil War. And the houses were humble, but people owned their own houses. And you saw, people, there were flowers on the stoops, and, the houses were sort of painted, and people cared about the community.
Right.
And my father fell in love with that community. And actually, Arthur Schlesinger, who wrote a book about
who wrote the most famous biography of my father, said that in that book that when Robert Kennedy was not at home, the place that he wanted to be more than any other was Bedford-Stuyvesant. And what he saw in that community is that there was this entrepreneurial spirit where people, wanted to be in business, and they were innovative and energetic, but they didn't have access to capital. And they didn't, they were redlined from the banks. The banks would not make loans in that area. They were redlined from insurance.
And look at them staring at him like, dude, why are you babbling and jumping? Yo, they looking at him like, come on, man, get to the point.
I agree.
See what I'm saying? They're like, dude, you making excuses, man. Get to the point. We ain't asked you about all that. Let's keep on listening. So far, he didn't answer anything.
Companies that, car insurance.
And lots of times that's the plan. Don't say specifics.
And a lot of other things that were disadvantages. But the big disadvantage, they didn't have access to capital, and they did not have access to knowledge. To my father, grew up among people where if he needed to call somebody from Harvard Business School to ask a business problem, he could call somebody.
Mm-hmm. He's tap dancing, ain't he? Oh, he's doing the tap dance. He's tapping. He's click-clacking them shoes.
But there was no access in that neighborhood to that. So a businessman who was smart and everything, but did not have, he didn't have that accumulated access to that kind of to business knowledge. So my father put together a group of top-level businessmen, Andre Mayer from Lazard Frères, Tom Watson from IBM, and a bunch of others, and got them to make a commitment to come.
Still not answering the reparations question. He tap dancing. He's trying out for Showtime at the Apollo. He's getting his tap on. He's tap dancing around the whole thing. Well, my dad started this, and can I tell you about myself? I'm calling him tap dancing, tap dancing Robert, tap dancing Kennedy Jr. All right, let's keep listening. Let's listen to him tap some more.
To Bed-Stuy regularly and to mentor businesses. And then when my father died, I went on the board of Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration. We built Restoration Plaza over there. And when I first went over there, I don't know if you are you from?
I'm from Brooklyn.
From Brooklyn.
I'm from
Bed-Stuy.
He's from Bed-Stuy.
You're from Bed-Stuy.
Restoration is on Fulton.
Yeah. Right. So my father built that, and I was on the board for.
And they so proud to say, "Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from Bed-Stuy, and I'm from such and such." Yeah, and I'm from the Bronx. So what? Get to the point, tap dancing Kennedy, tap dancing Robert. Get to the point. Answer the question.
35 years. We bought the Pathmark store there. When I first went out there, the closest grocery store was 75 blocks, 3 bus rides. So a woman who was trying to feed her kids had to get on 3 buses, get her loads of grocery, climb back on those buses at 75 blocks. And we got Pathmark to move into Restoration Plaza, which changed a lot of people. And then we built a theater there. We built, sports centers and we started giving access to microloans, to grants.
Now, I'm not making fun of the stuttering and him and I think he's doing it because he's trying to find things to say outside of saying he's for reparations and he's gonna do this or he's into doing that. He's just really trying to find things to say and add on to dance around his reparations question. He wants to go around the question all up and round and down. Don't want to respond to it. But he's going to say something pretty soon that you guys are going to find kind of interesting. He's going to kind of throw it in there. All right. For those who didn't see this particular interview. All right. So let's continue listening.
To opportunity districts where, you know, would be lower taxes. And when I first started going out there, and when my father went, all the businesses on Fulton Street were boarded up. There was nothing. And, you know, I have now, because when I married Cheryl and moved out west to California, I stepped down off the board at that point.
What is dude talking about? They got nothing to do with reparations. Cheryl Lynn, what name he said, and he stepped off the board. They asked you about reparations, dude. They ain't ask you about what board you stepped off of, and Cheryl Lynn and my dad made this group in Brooklyn. They ain't ask you that. Dude said your take or your position on reparations. But really, what you're doing is you telling us what your position is on reparations, Robert Kennedy Vaccine Jr. You showing what your real position is about reparations, about how you responding and acting now. Wait, man, I'm gonna play some more because there's a part that I'm still trying to get to. So let's continue.
Last time I was there, Fulton Street was thriving. There were, you know, all of these storefronts were crowded.
Yeah.
And that is good not only.
Wait a minute, y'all seen Mecca? He had to change his position. Like, dude, get to the point, man. Watch. Let me put it back a little bit. Let me see if this is it. Watch this. Watch.
Yeah.
And that is good not only for the Black community, but it's good for everybody. And so when you ask me about reparations, west of California, I stepped down off the board at that point. But the last time I was there, Fulton Street was thriving. There were, you know, all of these storefronts were crowded.
Yeah.
You seen Mecca change, but the one with the black and the dreads, you seen him have his feet like changed. Like, dude, come on, man, you bouncing around the question. You see that? Let me play it back, and we're gonna continue. Let's go.
The last time I was there, Fulton Street was thriving. There were, you know, all of these storefronts were crowded.
Yeah.
And that is good not only for the Black community, but it's good for everybody. And so when you ask me about reparations, I'm going to tell you one other thing. I spent 20% of my time representing Indians during my career.
Whoa. What was the point in bringing that up? Tap dancing Kennedy? Tap dancing Robert? Whoa. What was the point in bringing up Indians? That wasn't asked of you. Let's play that back.
I spent 20% of my time representing Indians during my career in the United States and Latin America and in Canada. And a lot of the Indian tribes at that point were getting gambling. States in Latin America and in Canada. I'm going to tell you one other thing. I spent 20% of my time representing Indians during my career in the United States and Latin America and in Canada. And a lot of the Indian tribes at that point were getting gambling. And there would be arguments, fights within the tribe about how do you distribute the gambling money. Do you? And the traditional chiefs would say, do not give it in cash payments. because.
Oh, that's what I wanted y'all to hear. We're going to let it keep playing through some more. But that's one of the things I want you to hear. Is he trying to like tell them in a coded way, like through story, what he's really not about and what he is about? He mentioned Indians. Nobody asked you about that. You mentioned what your dad built something in Brooklyn. Nobody asked you about that. Now you mentioning something about cash payments because he knows, just like the rest of them know, that when we talking about our reparations, one of the things we're referring to is we want cash payments. The same way they give to the Japanese, the Chinese, the Afghans, the Ukrainians, the Hispanics. But he's telling you in the story what he's really not for. All right? That's quite interesting. We're going to go back. Let's go back a little bit. All right.
I got to tell you one other thing. I spent 20% of my time representing Indians during my career in the United States and Latin America and in Canada. And a lot of the Indian tribes at that point were getting gambling. And there would be arguments, fights within the tribe about how do you distribute the gambling money. Do you, and the traditional chiefs would say, do not give it in cash payments because it is not, this money belongs to the entire community over the generations. And it should be distributed that way. And what we saw is the tribes that put it into institutions like clinics, scholarships, business loans, microloans, building factories.
And wait a minute. I never heard of no Kennedys dealing with Native Americans. So I don't even know if he's telling the truth. I never heard about that. Even being younger. Even the stories way back when Kennedy, when I think it's either his dad, I think his granddad was the one that got assassinated. And when Dr. King was still alive, I don't recall them mentioning nothing about no Native Americans. Is he out here lying? Coming up with a story to let y'all know what he's not down with? All right, let's continue.
Those tribes really flourished. The communities flourished. Right. And that sense of community was great. And all the tribes that did cash payments was a catastrophe. Well, I would be against cash. If there was no other issue, I would be against cash payment reparations. But if there was no other, right. And that sense of community was great. And all the tribes that did cash payments was good.
What'd he just say? What'd you say, Robert? What'd you say, tap dancer Robert? Let me see what he said. Hold on. What'd he say again? Let's listen to what he just said.
Catastrophe. Well, I would be against cash. If there was no other issue, I would be against cash payment reparations. But the word reparation means repair. And,
we know what the word reparation means. Tap dancing, Robert. But didn't you just hear him say he wouldn't be for cash payments? He went to use this Indian story to throw in the Indian part, like what Biden stated. He'd be down for reparations as long as the Native Americans can get in on it too. Notice how they all stay in line in some form or fashion. I'm going to play that back. He went to use the Native American story, made up this story, which I'm wondering now if this story is even made up. He might have made the story up all together. he might have made this story up. Tap dancing, just to let them know, and because other people watched the show, to let them know what he's really about when it comes to reparations without just coming out and saying it. He wanted to use it in a story. So notice the tactics, notice how they do it. Different people do different ways, but they all seem to come along and stay on code. It didn't matter if they was black, because you had, well, Scamala is not black, but you had Stacey Abrams and Raphael Warnock, NOT. You had Scamala and then Kennedy. They all have different ways of coming to the same conclusion, but they come to the same conclusion, right? So let's get it.
And all the tribes that did cash payments was a catastrophe. Well, I would be against cash. If there was no other issue, I would be against cash payment reparations. But the word reparation means repair. And, I grew up in a Jim Crow, and I saw this was not just the injury did not end with slavery. The injury and the deliberate suppression, the institutionalization of poverty in black neighborhoods is.
What I want to point out here is notice how he's going into the same bag as Kamala Harris. When asked about reparations, they all quick to tell you how, yes, this was bad. This is how it went down. They did this. And he's doing the same thing Kamala did, Kamala Harris. They'll tell you, like, they know what the history is on it or the certain details, just to let you know they know about it. But Kamala told you straight up what she's not going to do, only for a certain group of people. And you see he's using a story to show you how what he's not down with and what he is down with, which is basically nothing. That's what it boils down to. But notice the pattern. All right? Notice that.
Of poverty in black neighborhoods is systematic. It's systemic. Injury did not end with slavery. The injury and the deliberate suppression, the institutionalization of poverty in black neighborhoods is systematic. It's systemic, and
we know it's systemic. We know it's systematic. The same thing Kamala said. She said the same thing, basically. She basically said the same thing. So they're all reading from the same playbook. All right? They're all reading from the same playbook. Let's continue.
And it continues today in a million different ways. And we need to rebuild the black communities. And so that, my approach to doing that would be to do it in a way that I think is going to be most effective, which is what we did at Bed-Stuy. We created what we call a Community Development Corporation there, and it is now the model for hundreds of community development corporations around the country because it works.
He wants to do community development because they've been doing it all around the country because it works. Well, when you have a community, who's in that community? What groups of people, what ethnicities of people? It's not just one ethnicity and one group. So it sounds almost like the rising tide lifts all boats plan. It kind of seems like that. Ain't that right? Tap dancing Kennedy, tap dancing Robert. That's not cool, man. Let's continue.
And that it's less likely to contribute to the polarization between blacks and whites because it benefits everybody. Everybody, even people who are Trumpers, who I see all the time because I
see how Mecca's looking at him like, dude. And you notice he said it benefits everyone. That's the rising tide lifts all boats plan. Give everybody a little something, give everybody a lift up. That's what Kamala Harris said. Get everybody a lift up. He's on the same script. Now you see what he's really about when it comes to his position on reparations. Let me put that back a little bit. Let y'all keep listening. Like I said, this is about halfway through. I think it was about a 15-minute video, but I'm gonna try to let it play. But I'm gonna have to keep on talking in and out so you guys can see. I'm kind of call out each BS point so y'all can see what's going on. All right, let's keep listening.
For hundreds of community development corporations around the country because it works, and that it's less likely to contribute to the polarization between blacks and whites because it benefits everybody. Everybody, even people who are Trumpers, who I see all the time because it benefits everybody. Everybody.
Because it benefits everybody. You know, he almost like he cut himself off real quick. Why? You already said it. You said it. It benefits everybody. Everybody like who? Reparations is for a specific lineage of people, not a benefit for everybody. Tap dancing Robert. It's for a specific lineage of people, not for everybody. If you're out there and your people happen to be catching this broadcast, this is for a specific group of people, not for everyone.
The country because it works, and that it's less likely to contribute to the polarization between blacks and whites because it benefits everybody. Everybody, even people who are Trumpers, who I see all the time because I represent them in lawsuits against big ballooners.
They looking at him like, Robert, you full of ish. That's what they looking at him like. Let me go back. Look at that. They looking at him like, dude, you ain't saying ish. Look at him. Look how they're looking at him like, yo, Robert, you ain't saying jack ish. They stay in line when it comes to that reparations talk. They don't say what they want to do for black people specifically. They don't promise them nothing. They ain't gonna say what they're gonna do for them. They just tap dance like this. All right. We go back a little bit more.
Because it benefits everybody. Everybody, even people who are Trumpers, who I see all the time because I represent them in lawsuits against big ballooners. If you talk about business loans to black communities, everybody's for it. Everybody wants business to work.
They're for business loans, Robert. They're for business loans. You down for that? You down for giving black people business loans? But you're not down to repair them for the work that those ancestors did to build this country up, to make it the powerhouse that it has been. A loan in return to that, for all the free labor, didn't pay them a red cent, and all you want to do in return is give them a loan that they got to pay back for all that's been happening, for all the mistreatment, for all the psychological mistreatment, for all the physical mistreatment, for all the benefits you received in free labor, the way the women were treated, children and men. Yeah, I don't know the half of the horrible stuff they was doing. And you're talking about a loan. Everybody's for the loan, though, huh? Everybody's for that loan, huh? Okay.
Everybody, even people who are Trumpers, who I see all the time because I represent them in lawsuits against big ballooners. If you talk about business loans to black communities, everybody's for it. Everybody wants business to work and to flourish. And so for me, that would be my approach, to do everything I can to make, and I was in Cleveland a couple of weeks ago. COVID wiped out the black, this is what I mean by systemic racism. In 2008, America got wiped out by the loan, by these exotic loan instruments, like mushroom mortgages and balloon mortgages and all those. Yeah. For 10 years before, those same banks have been trying that out, experimenting in the black community with those. And it stripped the equity out, because a lot of those homes, like in Bed-Stuy, they were in those families for generation, and you could go get a mortgage, increase your mortgage, and you could start a small business, buy a sewing machine, do whatever, But then these, the banks were going to these families and saying, you got a great home, we'll give you this new kind of mortgage. You don't have to pay anything for the first 5 years. And it's all going to be great. And they signed on to them. They got sucked into it, and then they lost the home. And that stripped equity out of the community. And then the hospital consolidation happened. The same thing. They tried it at first out in the black communities, and they closed all the community hospitals. Wow. And then COVID happened. They closed 3.3 million businesses without due process, without just compensation. 41% of black-owned business will never reopen. Many of those businesses had 3 generations of equity in them. You had 3 generations, like a barbershop like this, and they have 3 generations caring for this business, nurturing it, growing it, and making it a growing concern. And they got wiped out. And I was in Cleveland 3 weeks ago in one of the poorest districts in Cleveland. It's called Lee Harbor. And the whole place boarded up. It's like a dystopian nightmare. There's a couple of businesses.
He bobbing and weaving, ain't he? He bobbing and weaving from that question. He ducking, he parrying. He's parrying that word, reparations. Bob and weave, reparations. Talking about everything else under the sun. He basically told y'all he wasn't down for cash payments. He threw in the Native American Indians, which I guess that was kind of a slick way to say, we need to get them in on this. Let me continue.
After I met with the owners of those businesses, I'm very, very interested in black-owned businesses. And they said, we are going under right now because we cannot get loans, because inflation hurts the poor, but interest rates hurt the poor worse. Right. Because the local banks will not loan, because the value of their treasury bills has gone underwater, and they have to they have to hoard their liquidity, and so because to avoid being taken over by one of the big banks. None of them I sat in the room across from a woman who is an elderly African-American woman who's had a sausage company that has been in her family for 5 generations, and it's a local institution, 80 years. They've been operating in this country, and she's shutting it down, not because there's a problem with the business. She needs a loan to upgrade some of the machinery, and she cannot get a loan anywhere. And the community is being systematically stripped. I'd say 20. I think I saw a statistic recently. By 2040, the value of equity in black communities is going to be 0. There's a systematic stripping of equity out of ownership, right, of wealth. And that is the same thing as slavery, ultimately. In black communities, it's going to be 0. There's a systematic stripping of equity out of ownership.
There's that word equity, the same word that Raphael Warnock used. Just putting the pieces together here. Putting the pieces together. All right. Just grabbing those pieces and putting it together for you. He's using one of Raphael Warnock's terms, equity.
of wealth. And that is the same thing as slavery, ultimately.
Yeah.
If you got no equity in your community, there's nobody even going to go to this barber shop because there's no cash. People get their hair cut at home. It destroys the community. So to me, the way, the reparations is about figuring out every way that we can to build Black-owned businesses back up. And if you talk about it in that way.
So reparations to him means trying to get all the Black businesses built up. Man, that ain't even a quarter of what reparations is about, homie. But I just playing this. Okay, continue playing. It's almost done. I just want y'all to see so y'all can study. It's like study case studies. All right. I played you Skamala Harris, played you Stacey Abrams, I played you Raphael Warnock, and I'm playing you Robert Kennedy. So you can study these cases. Look how they fall in step, fall in line with the same similar talking points. They never want what we're talking about. We should get. All right. Study these. Study this podcast.
Reparations is about figuring out every way that we can to build Black-owned businesses back up. And if you talk about it in that way, it doesn't inspire the polarization and the racism that if you talk about cash reparations, that reaction.
I hear you, and I.
I've been talking and the mic was down. So what I was saying was he's using a bit of Stacey Abrams talking points. And he was saying, well, don't put it like this, put it like that. Position it like this. Phrase it like that. Just like Stacey Abrams was saying, well, we don't want to talk about it like this. We don't want to put it like that because then people will get mad. Right? Let me go back a little bit. Listen up. Study this video, study this episode. So y'all know the games they be playing because they real easy. Like Kwame Brown say, they real easy to beat. They real easy to beat. Just study them. Look at that.
People get their hair cut at home. It destroys the community. So to me, the way, the reparations is about figuring out every way that we can to build Black-owned businesses back up. And if you talk about it in that way, it doesn't inspire the polarization and the racism that if you talk about cash reparations, that reaction.
I hear you, and I hear exactly where you're coming from. But I got to say, with all due respect, we in the Black community, I'll speak for myself, but I think there's other people I speak for too. We in the Black community are not really overly concerned about the feelings of other people who are polarized by the idea of us getting cash reparations back. If that hurts your feelings, that's kind of on you. And I'm not really, I'm also, just to continue to circle the wagons, I'm also not really overly interested in what's good for everybody when I start talking about reparations. When we start having that conversation, I'm concerned about what's good for the Black people who have always been systemically behind the 8 ball.
Right.
Due to people who will deny that system even exists. They'll tell you there is no systemic racism. They'll tell you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which don't exist. That's
after they've stolen your boots, right?
But I'm not even wearing boots. So, you know, please, I don't, I completely get what you're saying, and that is one way to do it. But I don't want our financial future, or not even, maybe not even financial future, but I don't want reparations contingent on how another group feels about it, or how another group is going to look at it or get upset about it. Like, I think maybe if we start,
like I said, I'm gonna play everything he said back. That's the Stacey Abrams argument. Worrying about what other people gonna think, and they get mad and how they gonna feel. No. So we're gonna play that back and then let it continue. All right.
That, you know, that reaction.
I hear you, and I hear exactly where you're coming from, but I gotta say, with all due respect, we in the black community, I'll speak for myself, but I think there's other people I speak for too. We in the black community are not really overly concerned about the feelings of other people who are polarized by the idea of us getting cash reparations back. If that hurts your feelings, that's kind of on you. And I'm not really, and I'm also, just to continue to circle the wagons, I'm also not really overly interested in what's good for everybody when I start talking about reparations. When we start having that conversation, concerned about what's good, what's good for the black people who have always been systemically behind the 8 ball.
Right.
Due to people who will deny that that system even exists. They'll tell you there is no systemic racism. They'll tell you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which don't exist. That's
after they've stolen your boots, right?
But you know, I'm not even wearing boots. So, you know, please, I completely get what you're saying, and that is one way to do it. But I don't want our financial future, or not even, maybe not even financial future, but I don't want reparations contingent on how another group feels about it, or how another group is going to look at it or get upset about it. Like, I think maybe if we admit to the 800-pound gorilla in the room and what that represents and what it's done and what it's continuing to do, maybe now that it's out on the table, we can deal with it. And maybe reparations won't hurt so bad if we're not trying to rewrite the history. If we're not trying to pretend that these things don't exist, there is no systemic racism, you just need to work harder. You had a black president, so it's not that bad. Like, maybe if we knock that stuff off, reparations won't feel so bad if you get that we're really just paying back what we already said we were doing.
I kind of see it from both sides, but I do agree with Mech.
Now, this is where, instead of them staying on code, you have Math Hoffa kind of butting in. Oh, I can see it from both sides. And then you're going to see Mecca kind of change his tune a little bit, like he's falling more in line with what Kennedy and Stacey Abrams and Warnock and Scammler was saying after he said what he just said. Instead of standing 10 toes down on it, you let Math make you switch it up a little bit.
You had a black president, so it's not that bad. Like, maybe if we knock that stuff off, reparations won't feel so bad if you get that we're really just paying back what we already said we were doing.
I kind of see it from both sides, but I do agree with Mech, because it's not like slavery benefited us. It didn't. So I feel like in the repair or the reparations of that, there shouldn't be a thought of anyone else and how they feel about it. However, I get what he's saying as far as what works over time, what is going to actually fix the community and not just seem like Christmas for 2 weeks and then it's back to regularly scheduled programming.
That's why I said I get it.
And there we have it, folks. And there we have it. So that's it, man. I wanted y'all to see that and make this like a learning tool, a learning lesson. This is like a course today where you can play back this episode and peep out. So when y'all hear this, because all of them going to say the same thing just about. When it's time to start having these candidates talk about what they're about, what they're not about, no reparations is going to come up. It's going to come up. And I want you to already know what they're going to be saying. Unless somebody in their camp is watching this. And I think sometimes they do watch some of these episodes, because I noticed a few times, like right after I've done certain episodes about different topics, and certain things happen like the next day. So I get the feeling that they watching. Some of them folks, maybe Kennedy's people was watching, the other candidates, Trump's people, I think was watching this, not this particular episode, but others in the past. So I know they were paying attention. But I want y'all to study this episode here so you can see how they get down. Like I said, I played Kamala Harris today, Stacey Abrams, Raphael Warnock, and Robert Kennedy Jr. when it came to talking about reparations. They all seem to be having the same talking points and using literally some of the words each other were using. What he's going to be with, what he's not really down for. So y'all can see how they get down. All right. So that's it, man. I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate y'all for checking us out. As you see in the bottom of the screen, I'm just going to be coming on every Thursday instead of Mondays and Thursdays, because I have some other projects I'm going to be working on, and I need those other times so I can work on those projects. All right. So I'm going to be doing it every Thursday. All right. And again, I appreciate y'all. Available on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Spotify. For those who follow me on my personal Facebook pages and personal Twitter, now called X instead of Twitter. But those who follow me on those, you'll be able to get to check it out there, or have some way to be able to check it out. Share this video out for sure to other people who've been having, other thoughts about things. Pass it on to them. Let them check this out. Let them see what's been going on. All right. And with that being said, I appreciate y'all, man. And I'm going to get on out of here. All right. So remember, I'll be back next Thursday with another Thoughts of the Week podcast. You'll probably see the listings in next few days or so, maybe tonight, maybe the next couple of days or so. You'll see what the next topic is going to be. And we're going to get it in when that time comes. All right. As always, man, you know what it is. You rocking with the best Thoughts of the Week. I'm out. Peace. You're rocking with the best Thoughts of the Week podcast.
Hey!